guys, welcome in. Welcome in. Alright, believe it or not, we have gone through, this is just to show you how far we've gone in the Bible itself too. We have gone through all of our quotes that I had written on each of these single-sided pages. So thinking about what to do next, we were coming up on the last quote as of a few days ago. We're just going to go ahead and restart from the beginning. We're going to go through all the quotes again in the same order we went last time, and we're going to draw them into these new readings that we have to give you a little bit of a taste. We finished this much of the Bible so far. Ignore this situation here. It is very tattered at this point. We have quite a bit to go, but I think we've really made some good headway. Getting into Kings after this, First Chronicles, Second Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, all that good stuff. Then we get into Psalms. I like looking ahead. It's exciting to me. But yes, we've made some really good headway. I appreciate everyone who's been listening and stuck with me even in the early days of the beginning, reading all the way from the beginning. You see, back then I was in t-shirts, pajamas, my hair was always awry, very messy, and now we're getting into a little bit more formal wear, a little bit more modest and appropriate attire for the nature of the things that we're discussing. So I thank you for going with me through this transition and appreciating and listening. Let's go ahead and start out with our narrative here from 2 Samuel. We have Absalom, who has gone about to go worship, and really he's calling up to arms all of the Israelites. And King David hears about this. He gets everybody, almost everybody, except for 10 concubines, out of the palace, and he goes into the wilderness to go and just see. He sends some spies back down to Jerusalem to go ahead and meet Absalom, and we're going to learn about what their plans are. And luckily he does have those spies, so he can learn about what his plans are, and we'll see what the outcome will be. Okay, and to start out with a quote, it says, "Thought shall be the harder, heart the keener, as are might lessens." So this is actually tying in perfectly to what we are going to talk about. How difficult is the decision making of David? How keen is his heart? And excuse me, I will have to look up the definition of keen, just because we use it and I'm not even really sure exactly what it means off the top of my head today. Keener, a person who wails or sings in grief for a dead person, or a person who is extremely eager, zealous, or enthusiastic. Okay, very two different definitions there, but we can then begin to gather what keener means. The heart should either wail or sing in grief, or be eager and zealous. This is exactly what David is going through. This is exactly what Absalom might be going through. Courage the greater. That is exactly what's happening between Absalom and David both. They're both having this tremendous courage. David to leave Jerusalem, and Absalom to go ahead and call the Israelites whose hearts were won by him up in arms. The caveat here, thought shall be the harder, heart the keener, courage the greater, as are might lessens. So it's kind of like the final hurrah. As we grow weaker, all of these things increase, giving us our final push. So this is a quote by Gordon, R.K. Gordon, "The Battle of Maldon." Of the Maldon. T-R-R-K. T-R-R-K. Gordon, 1926, and we did in our introduction video we did discuss Wow, there's been battles, there's been wars in every generation, even going back all the way to the Bible. Was there a time of peace before the Bible? Yes. Will there be a time of peace? Yes. Okay. So just know, even though we've had these battles, we've been reading about these conflicts and battles, there are times of peace. They will come, and they've been here before, just very, very few, far and few in between, I would say. It's very rare that we've ever seen times of peace, but they will come. Anyways, let's see, 2 Samuel. Let's go ahead and read chapter 16. As King David approached Bahurim, a man from the same clan as Saul's family came out from there. His name was Shimei, son of Gera. And he cursed as he came out. As he cursed, Shimei said, get out, you murderer, you scoundrel." All right. So we have somebody, as they're moving through the wilderness, as they're moving through Israel, we have somebody from the house of Saul who comes out and curses David. He calls them a murderer. He throws stones at him and his men. He's very upset at the relationship, I guess, between Saul and David. He claims that David is the one who destroyed the house of Saul, when in reality Saul was coming after David, as we remember, and each time David had the opportunity to kill Saul, he did not. There was that final battle where Saul leaned into his sword, and that had put him to death. There were people that claimed that they are the ones that pushed the sword in Saul, but we don't believe that is true. Anyways, David is not really to blame for the house of Saul, especially since he made amends with the only surviving son of the house of Saul and welcomed him for a seat at the table. Anyways, this person is clearly jaded, right? He has some anger against David. So David's men says, why don't we kill this man for saying these things and for being so cruel and irritating? David then said to Abishai, who had announced this, and all his officials, "My son, my own flesh and blood, is trying to kill me. How much more than this Benjamite? Leave him alone, let him curse, for the Lord has told him to. It may be that the Lord will look upon my misery and restore me to his covenant blessing instead of this curse today." So David has always been erring on the side of peace. He's not one to fight. He does not like conflict as much as the next. He will always be more forgiving than we imagine with David. And he claims here, he's like, my own son, Absalom, is trying to kill me. So it must be in the back of his mind, or people telling him that Absalom is looking to just overthrow David completely and murder him. That is David's fear. I don't know if that's actually in Absalom's heart. Nonetheless, David is protecting himself and his family, because in the throes of war, we don't know what could happen. And he wants to be restored to the covenant blessing. He does not want whatever is going on, whatever turmoil is going on between everybody, to go ahead and take place. It says here, "Meanwhile, Absalom and all the men of Israel came to Jerusalem, and Ahithopel," I figured out how to say it, Ahithopel, was with him. Then Hushai the Arkite, David's confidant, went to Absalom and said to him, "Long live the king, long live the king." So we have Hushai the spy. Remember that, Hushai the spy came, and he's trying to appease Absalom. He's trying to say, "Oh, I'm here for you, long live the king." And Absalom said to Hushai, "So this is the love you show your friend, if he's your friend. Why didn't you go with him?" Absalom is questioning Hushai. He's like, "Why aren't you with David? You know, he's your great friend." And Hushai says, "Oh, well, you're the son of my great friend. I will definitely support you and be here to uplift you." That's exactly what he says, essentially. Anyways, when Hushai came to him, Absalom said, "Ahithopel has given this advice. Should we do what he says? If not, give us your opinion." So the purpose of David sending down Hushai was to confuse Ahithopel's advice. And we were trying to figure out who exactly Ahithopel was. He was David's most trusted advisor. He was his greatest advisor. So it's interesting to see him now siding with Absalom. Another thing, anything Absalom said, his words were regarded as straight from God. That's how much they confided in Ahithopel, and that's how much they trusted Ahithopel. So interesting, to say the least, that he was highly regarded, and both David, Absalom, whomever consulted Ahithopel, his words were gold, right? They were straight from God, supposedly. So Ahithopel says that he should get, Absalom should get 12,000 men. Should get 12,000 men, and he should go after David. That was Ahithopel's advice. 12,000 men set out tonight in pursuit of David. So that was his plan. It says here, Absalom is asking Hushai, what should I do? Should I go ahead and do this? Hushai replied to Absalom, the advice Ahithopel has given is not good at this time. So it's interesting. He says it's not good, and he gives Absalom a counter plan. And it seems as though Hushai's counter plan is even more heavy, right? It's more intense. He says that he should muster up all the people of Israel, all the Israelites, and go and seek out David. Let's see. He says, your father, you know your father and his men. They are fighters and as fierce as a wild bear robbed of her cubs. Besides, your father is an experienced fighter. He will not spend a night with the troops. Even now he is hidden in a cave. If he should attack your troops first, whoever... let's see what he says here. I advise you, this is Hushai's advice. Let all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, as numerous as the sand on the seashore, be gathered to you, with you yourself leading them into battle. So his advice is to gather everybody, not just 12,000 men, because David is an experienced fighter. Get everybody from Dan to Beersheba and attack that way. So very interesting. Again, it's just to confuse Ahithopel's advice. Hushai replied to Absalom. It says here, Jonathan and Ahimaaz were staying in En Rogel. Those were the other people that went from David's convoy back to Jerusalem. It says here, a female servant was to go to inform them, and they were to go and tell King David, for they could not risk being seen entering the city. So they were going to go back and tell David what the new plan was, right? The Israelites and Absalom camped in the land of Gilead. So now the Israelites are setting out along with Absalom. Everybody whose heart Absalom won, he took from Dan to Beersheba. When David came to Mahanaim, Shobi, son of Nahash from Rabbah of the Ammonites, and Makir, son of Ammiel from Lo Debar, and Barzillai the Gileadite from Rogelim, brought bedding and bowls and articles of pottery. They also brought wheat and barley, flour and roasted grain, beans and lentils, honey and curds, sheep and cheese from cow's milk for David and his people to eat. For they said, the people have become exhausted and hungry and thirsty in the wilderness. So they're all getting ready to fight. We have the Absalom and the Israelites camping in Gilead, and David had some gifts brought to him. It's interesting how he had gifts brought to him. I thought that was just an interesting thing. They had lots of supplementation. I'm looking for the right word. Anyways, they had lots of supplementation to go ahead and restore their energy. So this is kind of the difference. Absalom's might not all the way be there because he's taking townspeople, essentially, right? And a few people from the palace. And his might not all be there. But David's might is going to be very strong and very restored because he has all of this sustenance to go ahead and replenish his energy and all the energy of his men. It says here, David's army marched out of the city to fight Israel, and the battle took place in the forest of Ephraim. There Israel's troops were routed by David's men, and the casualties that day were great, 20,000 men. So it is a bit sad to see David and to to learn about David having to attack his own people with his own army and convoy. But that is what happened. It says the casualties were great, 20,000 men. It so happens that David orders his men to protect Absalom and to be gentle. His specific words were to be gentle with Absalom. It was not David's intentions for Absalom to die. Let's see. Absalom for my sake. Be gentle with the young man Absalom for my sake. And all the troops heard the king giving orders concerning Absalom to each of the commanders. So it was his order to go ahead and be gentle with Absalom. Not necessarily to spare his life, not necessarily to capture him and bring him back home. No, it was to be gentle. So what had happened here? I'll just read this line, but I did cut this part out. It says, Then Joab sounded the trumpet, and the troops stopped pursuing Israel, for Joab halted them. They took Absalom, threw him into a big pit in the forest, and piled up large heaps of rocks over him. Meanwhile, the Israelites fled into their homes. So they're piling up large heaps of rocks over him. Why? Because this is his body. Absalom had died. And his nature of death was very different. He actually was riding, and his hair, or an article of his clothing, I have to look now, I should have just put that in there, but it's a little much, riding his mule, and the mule went under the thick of branches, a large oak. Absalom's hair got caught in the tree. He was left hanging in mid-air. While the mule was riding, he kept on going. So he was hanging by his hair in a tree. Okay. When one of the men saw what had happened, he told Joab, I just saw Absalom hanging in an oak tree. Joab said to the man who had told him this, What? You saw him? Why didn't you strike him to the ground right there? The man replied, Even if 1,000 shekels were weighed out into my hands, I would not lay a hand on the king's son. So he's saying, hearing our king commanded you and Abishai to protect the young man for Absalom young man Absalom for my sake. So in this recollection, the young man did not kill Absalom because he heard to go ahead and protect Absalom. But in that, Joab said, I am not going to wait like this for you. So he took 3 javelins in his hand and plunged them into Absalom's heart, while Absalom was still alive in the oak tree. So Joab was the one who did murder Absalom. Okay. Whether it was to protect or to be gentle, each time it's a little bit of a sad story, right? So let's go ahead and read here. It's over. Joab sounded the trumpet. The Israelites fled back into their homes. They took Absalom. We read that part. Okay. Then Joab said to a Cushite, Go tell the king what you have seen. The Cushite bowed before Joab and ran off. Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, again said to Joab, Come what may, please let me run behind the Cushite. But Joab replied, My son, why do you want to go? You don't have any news that will bring you a reward. He said, Come what may, I want to run. So this part here, Joab does not go to the king himself to go ahead and say, Absalom has died, or I killed Absalom. He knows that this news would be very, very heavy on David's heart. Very, very heavy. So he sends a Cushite, somebody who's not too close to King David, to go ahead and let him know what had happened. But for some reason, Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, wants to go and bear the news as well. So the Cushite and Ahimaaz go into a bit of a foot race to run to get to David to tell him the news. And the reason why Ahimaaz wants to go, I don't know. Maybe we'll learn about that in the second portion. But that is all I have for you for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. I know it's a very heavy and serious topic, but we learned that the sword has never left King David. right? It's his son. That's very sad. Let's learn about the outcome of this narrative here next time. Thank you for listening. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.